you got to spend a couple of days in Sydney. What do you think of Sydney?
Wow.
We're beach and water people. Love the water, love boats, love sand and just sun, being out in the sun. And so beautiful, beautiful. What's funny is, I guess 50 years ago they had trams and trains, and they took them all out, and now they're putting them all back. So it was just funny to see that happening. But you know, I never thought I'd ever see the Opera Center,
Opera House.
the Opera House. I never thought I would see it, because there's so many things in the world to see that I just never thought I would see that. And so it was kind of, I was like a little kid. I mean, we were going across the bridge, and I asked the guy who was driving to open up the sunroof, and I stood up out of the sunroof just to take pictures of because you never know how close we were going to get, right? So it was really
We saw a side of Sydney that was incredible. We took the water taxis and went on the water and saw the back ways of it, down to Darling Harbor. We started at a place called Kissing Point and ended up at Darling Harbor, and then, like Harry said, we got off to go walk the Opera House, and it was just cool. We didn't do the over the bridge tour because apparently you have to book that months in advance to do, but to go under it on the water and just experience that, it was incredible, absolutely incredible. The architecture and the buildings and the greenery and the water.
And the people we stayed with, Michael Schmitz, the family over there.
Their family, top notch, just excellent.
It's unbelievable. You know, we haven't even touched on the shows at all that's coming and going, but good people over there, really good people.
It's hard. We're very conflicted, having a very hard time because, granted, we came over here on holiday, which is vacation, and, you know, did the shows, did what needed to happen, and came over for BMX. But the people that we've met, and they've just really touched us.
We were, she was on the phone today confirming our flights. I said, wait a minute, let's not confirm anything yet.
So we're not confirmed to go home yet.
So we haven't confirmed our flights yet, so we keep that door slightly open, because Sydney was beautiful, totally different. This is very country-esque and, you know, very rural over where we're at right now, and that's very fast and modern and going on. But retro BMX here is in good hands between Pete and Michael, and whatever comes from the other cities or regions or states here in Australia, it's in good hands.
I'm going to have to ask you as outsiders, because people from Melbourne and people from Sydney have their biased opinions, but what do you think's better out of Melbourne and Sydney? Which did you enjoy more?
I don't think it'd be fair to pick. I really don't, because if I did, I wouldn't be coming back.
I know. I'm
Right?
thinking,
If we say Melbourne, the Sydney guys are going to never invite us back. If we say Sydney, I'm never going to be able to see Pete again.
it's a trick question. No, you really.
Which
honestly,
one did you like? I like the other.
Which you like the other? I like the other too.
There we go.
You really can't pick because they're both two totally different styles and lifestyles. People in both places completely genuine and true and real, and that's what we appreciate. It wasn't a show. It was genuine passion, very passionate people, and very open. It wasn't all just about BMX, or it was, this is how we live, this is our life, this is my family, you know, this is, you know, what we do for work. And just seeing that, just coming over as a tourist and staying in a hotel, we wouldn't have seen or experienced anything like that. So
And we were, you know, blessed in who we're staying with. You know, I mean, this house, it's you know, probably at least a $1.5 million house in California, easy. easy. And, you know, and Michael's in Sydney, he built it. You know, that's what he does. He does housing, builds houses and stuff. And it was beautiful, you know, just, so we're very blessed in where we've been able to stay. And we're more country, you know, being like, you know, a house out here, kind of away with the views. And one of the first things when we got up on the first morning we were here, you know, we want to see freaking kangaroos. You know, you come to Australia, where's the kangaroos, right? Well, we landed, it was dark, and we were having coffee, and all of a sudden she started screaming, "Oh, that kangaroo!" Wow, yeah, right, honey, sure. Then go back to sleep. No, and then we looked out the window, and there's hundreds of them right across the street. And then so that was kind of a
I was very excited.
Yeah, so.
I couldn't believe it. You know, they're like jackrabbits over, you know, in the States. You see a bunny hopping through, and but there's hundreds and hundreds of kangaroos.
And yesterday morning when we went to go leave, they were right up against the fence over here, so we ran over to the fence, and we're like, you know, 20 feet from like hundreds of them, and they're all staring at you. And it was really funny. I mean, this is kind of a silly thing, but there's a big dude, standing there. And he's just looking at us, and he goes,
Shook his head, knocked off.
And it was like, really? Another bloody American staring at me? Come on.
It was great.
We all look alike anyways, the kangaroos.
And I have to ask you, you did say you enjoyed the racing and the passion of BMXs here, but what did you think of the Knox track?
I wish, I mean, there's tracks like that in the States, but they're nowhere near me. You know, we have the Olympic Training Center, Chula Vista's track, which is fun to ride. But this one here is the way it flows, and I love corners, and I love coming like off the end of a corner. And so the way everything kind of lines up, and the key to building a really good track is how corners line up from corner to corner. And this track has a really cool flow to it, and it's technical. I love flat gates, and this gate is flat. Even though the hill is tall, the gate where you actually are behind the gate is flat. And so I love those kind of starts because it's a lot of power and torque to get going. And so I think that's what helped last night. Because the guy, I don't know, who's the guy number 14?
Danny.
Matt, Don.
No, number 14. The guy he beat me in two. Yeah.
Yeah, Matt something.
Yeah, Matt. I mean, he was faster than I was out of the first turn to the finish line. He passed me twice. But in the main event, he wasn't going to pass me. Sorry, Matt. So I just fully cut him off down the last straightaway. Had to do. It's called the pro fade.
The track is incredible. It's lush, and there's just a lot of, you can tell that there's a lot of care that goes into it, that people really take care of it. And we've experienced all different seasons since we've been here. The rain, the sun, and us thinking, you know, our Southern California mentality that, oh, they're probably not going to ride tonight. The track will be too muddy, or it'll be too, you know, nobody wants to go out and rut the tracks. And they groomed it. It was groomed perfectly. So
yeah, it was. It was awesome. What was I going to say? I can't remember. Oh, have you ever been to Rockford?
Yes.
It reminded me when we first rolled up, I said, this is Midwest BMX. Because Rockford is like that. Did you ever been to Louisville? Kentucky, there's, you know, once you go Midwest, it's park-based, like what you guys, it's all park, it's open. And so it's just, when we rolled in, it's, this is Midwest BMX. And you get tracks like that with the greenery, but this one had some really cool combinations of straightaways that would have been fun to really ride and get used to and jump more.
The surface would have been different to what you're used to, a gravelly sort of surface.
No, because your guys, everything was paved, so the corners were fun and smooth.
Harry has a license, a club license for 4 months over here. So just in case you want to.
What's my number? 208.
208.
It's a great number. Combinations of twos.
I have to ask, during your pro career, back in the 80s and 90s, did you actually get to race outside the US yourself?
We were very lucky. We spent a lot of time in England. We did the Kellogg series, and then we were there before Kellogg's, and then I did a trip with Andy Patterson when he was on Skyway, and myself. We had a Diamondback distributor there, and so Diamondback was really, really big in the day of working with dealers and distributors and promoting the riders to sell bikes to help dealer do pull-throughs. So there was, when I went over and worked with, I can't remember his name, the distributor of Diamondback, that was my first trip there. And so I got to race Tim March and Andy Ruffle and all those guys back then. And so that was one of my first trips abroad was there. And then Kellogg's did that series where they had 3 starting hills that had 2 starting gates on each hill.
So the track was different depending on which starting hill?
Yeah, and it kind of went all over the place on the inside. So it was a televised race. So they would just have us start on a different hill and have a completely different track for the TV. And so that was really fun, and it was cool because we traveled, all the top pros were on a bus. I mean, we didn't hate each other, but we weren't best friends. And especially after 2 or 3 races, you really, you knew who you were fighting with because they were in the front of the bus and I was in the back most of the time. I was arguing with somebody.
During the same period, the movie Rad would have been made. You would have been in your prime. Why didn't we see you in that film?
That's funny, because Rad's been a topic the whole time. I've never seen the movie.
Oh,
ever.
really?
Never. So we're having movie night tonight. They got Rad, so we're gonna watch Rad tonight. Diamondback, we were so focused on team titles, and I was in the hunt for the pro title. I was top 3 or 4, and to pull us out of to pull myself and the riders that were invited, I think it was myself, King, Doug Davis, there was, and a couple of little guys, I think, Brent Romero, I don't think so, no. So we were invited, but told that we couldn't go.
When did you start racing BMX?
My first race was in early '73, I think. It was just I went into a bike shop and there was a little, flyer posted in the window. BMX race it was at a school, sponsored by Fred's Bike Shop, and I still have my very first trophy. It's in pieces, but it's still there, It still says Fred's Bike Shop, first place, 1973. And then it was just parks and rec. I did a lot of little stuff, and I was just local. However I got to the race, I rode to the race. My dad, I think, took me to 2 races, and my mom has seen 2 races in 43 years. And I don't regret any of that at all. I think that because I've had to ride and I've had to fight and claw and scratch to get when I needed to race, I think it's kept me in it for as long as I have been in it. I see a lot of kids that get pushed into something and then forced to stay in something, and those are the ones that'll burn out and kind of get frustrated with the whole thing. So
What's been the biggest highlight of your racing career?
I mean, I love what's going on today, not what's going on. I love, and that's a whole different thing that I want to touch on a little bit, but without a doubt, last year's Grants, honestly, that was pretty cool.
Do you want to pause from
No, it was pretty cool race.
Do you want to tell us about the race?
You can tell.
He worked really hard. He works hard every day. A lot of the questions that were asked on the trip from different people, old and young, that we met, is, when did you stop racing? And a lot of people are under the impression that he is not still racing, and he's raced every year. He's never quit his entire career. He's always raced, whether it be a national a year, or, you know, local Gold Cup qualifiers, things like that. And last year there was just a lot of heart and a lot of training, a lot of support both ways that went into it. Sponsors really stepped up last year, you know, to help him.
It was a good year.
And it was just a good year. And we went out, and we say we because it is a team. And, you know, when you have that person that supports you in it and is passionate about it and understands it and gets it and knows, I mean, sees this person working out every day, training on road bikes every day, and riding every day. And it's not easy to watch him go practice because of the career that he's had his entire life and been very successful and in magazines. Every practice for him ends up having to be a race because everybody wants to get on the gate and they want to beat him and there's a target. And so, you know, we go there, you know, with a program and set, okay, we're going to practice, we're going to do this. I'll videotape it, and I videotape everything. And I can tell you exactly when the wheel will be set down by the way that he gets out of the gate. I've learned it over watching. And I turned into a crazy BMX mom at the Grands this last year.
I never tried to video a race and never got
I couldn't video it. I was like this the whole time, and I'm screaming and jumping, and we made a plan for the trip. There were things that I wanted to see along the way. We stopped. We went to the Al Unser Museum in Albuquerque. We went and tagged Cadillacs and at the Cadillac Ranch, and
not as good as Pete.
It's the same trip where you did the lip syncing.
we did, and I'll tell you all about that. But to get there, he was chasing. He was in the lead for the Race of Champions, and I'm in the stands watching him in practice. Madison, my daughter, was with us and traveled with us to that event, and
she's a crack up.
we just were screaming at the top of our lungs, and to see him come out there and being a motocross fan that he is, the red plate is the plate that you want. The Ryan Dungeys, the Trey Canards, those guys, when they rock that red plate, you know that they've worked their tail off. All year long, the motivation, there was a red plate that hung on the refrigerator in the kitchen.
I had a picture of Jeremy Martin's plate on my refrigerator.
And every day, he wanted that red plate. And I remember being up in the stands, screaming, watching him come across the finish line, and then ran as fast as I could like a crazy BMX mom across the track to just hug him and congratulate him. And I'm crying and he's crying because it was like, we did it. We high-fived it. We did it, you know? I mean, there's just a lot of heart that went into it, and it built going into the rest of the race for the actual Grands. And to take, you know, a trophy home that's taller than you, and look at that. Granted, the trophies, you know, those, we could have given it to any little kid or whomever, but I was like, we earned this. It's coming home. So.
But the race itself was, you know, it's BMX is all mental. You do it, and you're good at doing it, and it's all mental. And so, you know, you do all the training, you do all the work, and racing is the easiest part of this whole sport. I mean, on the cruiser, I did 2 laps on Friday on the cruiser. Or 3 laps maybe. Oh yeah, 2 laps because my chain broke. I broke my chain on one of my qualifying heats, so I didn't qualify the first round, but I didn't really race that full race. So I had to go back and race the second moto, and you don't ever want to be in a second moto when you really you showed up for the plate. Motos are just a formality. You got to do them to get to here to race for the plate. So that second moto, if I didn't make it, I mean the whole year goes in the toilets. you know. So then for the main event, I get lane 8. So I'm thinking, cool. And so we went and saw Creed the night before, right? I love Rocky and that whole thing. And so there's a scene in Creed, and I do this all the time. I'll pull things, little things out, and I'll just put them away up here, and I'll use them later. So one of the things I used in Creed was when Rocky was telling Apollo's son went to you to box at the mirror. And he made sure, he says, that's who you're fighting. You're fighting yourself. And so when I got lane 8, I figured, okay. I put my head down and I just thought about it. It's just me, the bike, the gate, and the track. And it was probably the single best lap I've ever had on a bike. Not the fastest, by no means, because I'm almost 60, right? And so, but it was the most rewarding lap I've ever done because it was an entire year of us working together that, you know, it was perfect.
So you asked about videos. Coming back from the trip, you know, you've had a week on the road and went there. He did his job. We worked as a team.
Pressure's off.
Pressure's off. And
21-hour drive to do.
and we have to, you know, he has to be back at work. We have work, you know, reality. And I said to him, I am so bored. He says, well, what do you want to do? I said, I'm going to make a video. And I'm going to call it the 2015 Grands Road Challenge. And I'm going to start calling people out and we'll see what happens. And we staged this video with Madison, Harry and I, and we did Bohemian Rhapsody, Queen. And, you know, of course we can't just video it. We have to have a light show. So we're clicking on and off lights between the three of us.
The Queen Bohemian Rhapsody, the actual MTV one, you know, boom, you turn the light off. And so it was so freaking fun. And even and then the end, what's the movie with, the guy says Schwang. What's that dude? What's that movie? Anybody? Wayne's World. So the you know the scene in the Pacer when the Bohemian Rhapsody song comes to the end and everybody's so we hit that and we just nailed that, and I think that was the thing that was the funniest. We're just lights are all on and we're just banging to the music, and it was just.
A lot of people don't know though that we did a Journey one earlier in the day, and Harry was laying down in the back seat. Madison and I were singing it at the top of our lungs, and we're, you know, just rocking out to it. And all of a sudden, Harry pops up in one scene, and so the people that have seen that, it was just it was basically to waste some time, and it ended up going viral. We had over 5,000 views. And people are still talking about the videos. And just so you know, people, it's on for the Grands this year. We're already practicing.
Right. We've hired a professional rapper to help us, Pete. He's going to be training us on how to rap. So
Exactly.
watch out.
With a career that spans decades, I'm sure that you're referred to as an old school BMXer to a lot of people. How does that sit with you? I mean, you've been there right from the start, but do you just call yourself a BMXer?
We've been talking a lot of old school since we've been here to a lot of old schoolers, and like last night we're sitting around after the race and had a couple beers, and we need to come up with a new name. I hate that word. I hate old school, that word, because I mean, it's like drag racers. Don Garlits. Do you call Don Garlits old school? Do you call Darrell Walter old school?
Maybe it's the nostalgia BMX racers. Who knows?
Something.
I don't know, I think lifer probably works.
Lifer.
You know, it's just, it's life.
You know, when I look at huge racer guy, I look at, you know, Johnny O'Mara or Jeremy McGrath or guys that or Bob Hanna or Roger DeCoster. They're not old school, they're pioneers, or they're trendsetters, or they're people that have established and put something in place that is sound and going and still going. And so for us back in the day, for me it was John George, David Clinton, Bobby Encinas, Brian Ramazinski, guys that I had to race as a kid coming from West Covina, California, and showing up. And it was, you know, those guys, I don't feel get what they should be getting as part of what, you know, like I'm getting, or what's going on right now. If you know Dave Clinton, you know that that guy was probably the very, very first superstar even before Stu. He was just, you know, he had a family and responsibilities and priorities. He picked the right road. And we were talking about this the other day, and I've put bikes first my whole life. And it's been good for me, but that's kind of a selfish approach to things, you know. It hasn't been good for relationships, and it's actually put a strain on ours a little bit, that it's time to not have the bike first, you know what I mean? So.
Is there one title you have always wanted that's eluded you?
Probably ABA #1 Pro, 20-inch. I did a thing every year where, in my head, you know, I justified my year. You have to justify your year. It's either a successful year or it's a not a successful year. Then you have to assess what you're not good at and what you're good at and what you need to improve on in order to have another, either fix your year or have another good year. And so I would always, because we race 2 sanctions pretty regularly, NBL and ABA. So at the end of the year, I would take my 2 numbers and I would add them up, and then I would take everybody else's 2 numbers and I'd add them up. And most of the time, I would say my 2 numbers were less than everybody else's, because guys focused on a different sanction. You know, some guys focused NBL, some guys focused ABA. But on Diamondback, we raced both equally because we had to as a team. So, you know, there was a year I had 2 number 2s in the same year in both sanctions, and that was the best. Because in motocross, they had this thing back in the day where you won a blue plate. And that was for the guy who accumulated the most points out of everything on a 500, and you know what I mean? It was the most AMA points earned. And so that's kind of what I looked at for me, and I justified many of my years. Even though I may not have done great or whatever in one sanction, my combination was still lower as an average.
You turned pro at the age of 18 in 1977 and continued as a pro to 2007, which is pretty impressive, 30 years as a pro. What kept you motivated and focused for those 30 years?
I love to work out. I love to just train and ride. And riding the bike at the track is fun, you know. And racing, there's a lot of pressure. I mean, I put a lot of pressure on me and a lot of pressure on us and the relationship. And being a pro is not easy. There's a lot of guys that have a pro license. Anybody can go get a pro license, but they're not pros. You know, they're not. And so being a real pro is not easy. It's very stressful. And during those years as a pro, I was not a very good person in a relationship, because I always put my bike first. And when back then when I said it was me and my bike. And so we're going to go here, we're going to go do this. It was me and my bike, you know. And people that have ridden bikes all their life know that. And I started really young, riding a bike at age 11 in my front yard. My dad wouldn't let me go in the street until I was 12. I couldn't go off the street until I was 14. I had to be home when the street lights came on. And there was a lot of rules around my time trying to learn how to ride. And I think that added to the, like I was talking earlier, the desire to ride and race, and that probably limited support that I got fueled me even more to do it. And it was just, it was fun being challenged every weekend. So.
Most Diamondback fans know of the Harry Leary Turbo, but what other Diamondback frames did you have input into?
All of them. All of them. And the really cool thing about Diamondback is they truly, and because we had Sandy Finkelman as the manager of the team, and we had some great core people as our inside guys. David Clinton was there. He was an inside sales rep. Even though he didn't race, he saw him a lot, and he was an inside sales rep contact for all the outside sales guys. So he was there, and he had input with stuff. I would always, as often as I could, talk to him about things because I respect that guy because what he did for the sport. But our kids, the guys that rode the bikes, you know, and Sandy and I spent a lot of time videoing and watching, you know, details of, like Patty said, when I come out of the gate, my front wheel will float for 1.5 cranks and then it drops. And I can count how many gates I do by where my front wheel drops because it drops in a little pattern about that big, you know. I can get 10 gates and I can see little spots. And so working with the kids, we figured out what they needed and we just used them. And in developing the turbo, when we started, I was riding a pro, you know, and so we started working on things and they would send 5 frames in a box. And I would put each one together and I'd ride it for however long to get a feel for it, and then I would write a report on that bike, and then I'd ride all 5 and then send everything to Diamondback, and then they would order 5 more, starting with the one that we accumulated all the information from, and then variations off that one in 4 other different versions until we came to the turbo. And I guess because of all the effort that we put into developing the bike, they put my name on it. And that's how the bike came about.
At the time, there weren't any other signature bikes, were there? It was very unusual for someone to put their name on a bike.
Yeah, I don't think there was any others back in the day, unless you know of. I know Brent didn't have one, right?
No. Perry.
Yeah, PK.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
I'm not.
No, PK. And there's a guy right there. I mean, really? I mean, today his name's still on the bike.
Yeah.
But
he was never one of the bigger name pro riders, was he? I think he had one big win somewhere.
He had some wins, but he just, you know, he had a family, and that there's not many guys from that era that have had one wife. Okay? This sport is unforgiving on relationships. You choose one or the other. And I chose.
Perry did it.
And Perry chose a family.
Yeah.
Stu chose Tanya. Clinton chose, I can't remember his wife, but Rita. And so those 3 guys and there's probably more, but those were the 3 guys that were in the magazine, chose family and life over the sport and kind of just walked away from it. So had they done what I did or some of the other guys did and always put the bike first, who knows what they would have done.
You rode for Diamondback from 1980 to 1992, the last 3 years as a team manager. What was it like to be riding and managing the team at the same time?
Fun. It was fun. It's like I'm a supervisor at work, and it's basically your team manager, you know. And it comes down to training, how you train your employees, or the example you lead with your employees. In that, my group at work, because we've worked together and we've cross-trained so much, everybody knows what to do as an employee that works for me. And so I don't, you know, it's really cool. They give me a lot more than that the other guys do. And the team is the same way. I mean, I had Eddie and Brandon Brandon Allen and Charles Townsend and Matt Hayden, and I had guys that were seasoned guys, and it made it easy, you know. We would make sure that whatever needed to get done was done and prepared, and they had it, and they had it soon enough to be used to it, because as a rider, you don't want to go to any event and have to get used to something for the first time. And so I always made sure that I got them their stuff before they needed it. And so when we showed up, it was a matter of, you're in this race, you're in this race, you're in this race, let's work on gearing, and let's work on your gate, and let's get all that fixed and dialed in the motos, and then you all know why we're here. We are only here to do what we're, to be in the main and to be on the box. And so it was fun.
What about the extra pressure? As a rider, you would have had pressure to perform, and you probably would have felt that. But then to also try and make sure that the whole team does well, it must have mounted.
I was, you know what? I was probably more of a butthead at home. You know what I mean? I was probably not. Again, it goes back to being in a relationship with somebody and not being the right person to be, you know, not being a true partner in that relationship. And so it just kept me very removed from home and the home life like. So I think that's what the pressure did for that. Once at the event, it's just, you know, it's just like, it's already rehearsed, it's already in your head, and you just let it roll. Like we were talking when we got on the plane, that when the doors close, reality stops. Right? So, you know, tomorrow, I mean, I don't want to go home.
Was it hard to be a racer though, for Diamondback, and then manage the team and all the kids and all the riders? I mean,
No, it was easy.
no.
Yeah, it was just easy.
So you've had a lot of people, riders, parents, children that look up to you. Does Harry Leary have a rider or person that you look up to in BMX?
Today, right now?
Yeah.
Connor Fields. Yeah, it was, when I was working for Cutting Edge track in Ontario, his dad and Connor would show up at the track on Saturday mornings from Las Vegas and be waiting to open the gate, for me to open the gate to come ride practice. And so to see him accomplish what he's accomplished is very, very cool. And he's a good person. He takes the time with the kids, as do all the riders. You know, they all help, and they all are a part of making sure that they give the time they need. But, you know, it would be Connor from the USA side. And, you know, Morris, and I mean, the list goes on and on and on, but Connor for sure.
In 1995, you started Dirtworks. How did that come about?
I don't know. That was. I went from Diamondback to a general manager at a company called Balance. It was a brand new company, just starting out, and their key was they'd assemble the bikes in the USA at a facility in Valencia where they brought in a Taiwanese assembly line. And so what we did is we offered packages and groups that you could custom order. In other words, if you wanted, we'd have a frame, and then say they wanted a Shimano LX group on it with a Manitou fork. We would put that bike on an assembly line, run it down, and put it in the box for the dealer, and they would get kind of what they wanted. So it was a unique experience to do that kind of stuff with them. So when I started, they had no dealers or no network or no sales guys or nothing. And so I came in and we started to establish a dealer network. I hired some outside independent sales reps, put on sales meetings, and it was just, it was a unique time to learn the business because I had already taken the business from what I learned at Diamondback and rolled it into that. And then Balance changed their business plan. We were owned by a company in Taiwan. It was a factory. That factory went out of business because there was a conflict of interest. The factory was half owner in Balance, but the factory also made a lot of the mountain bikes for a lot of the other bikes that companies that had independent dealers. So as Balance became more competitive and started to work its way into dealers that all these other bikes that the same factory made, these companies left the factory because there was a conflict of interest, and one of it was pricing. Obviously, the company that owned Balance and was making Balance bikes, there was a price advantage there to us to go in and undersell by 30 or 40 bucks, whatever it was, and our bikes looked beautiful. I mean, if you go look at a Balance mountain bike or a BMX bike, they were very unique looking. Our first year out with Balance, we won with Mikey King, we won the World Downhill Championships in France. So first year, picked up Mikey, we threw him on a mountain bike and got a Pro Forks on the front, sent him to France, and he won the World Downhill Championship for us. So we were, boom, on the map first year out. And then we put together a BMX program and we won Bike of the Year with the ABA, voted as Bike of the Year. I had John Purse, Greg Hill, Matt Hayden, and myself on the bikes. And we had a lot of fun. And then when that factory in Taiwan closed down, Balance stopped. So that's when I started Dirtworks. It was more of, okay, let's give it a try and see what happens.
The Dirtworks frames were chromo.
Chromo, yeah.
After working with aluminium with Balance, was there a learning curve there?
No, because developing all the chromoly bikes at Diamondback, it was kind of okay. And then during the Balance time, we were racing Vet Pro when I was on Balance, and I won 2 titles back to back as a Master Pro. And so I got to know Jesse Guyman at Boss because I was racing Brian Patterson. Him and I were like at war in this battle at this title race. So I got to know Jesse Guyman really good at Boss, and so they made my Dirtworks at Boss. So it was kind of easy to do. NorCal, babe.
The truth comes out.
What NorCal?
What are your thoughts on the way BMX is headed with supercross tracks and 8-metre hills?
Oh, wow.
You got an hour?
What about the short version?
Anything that can put BMX on TV is a good thing. If the sport is on TV in front of somebody, it's a good thing. Is it the future of the sport? I don't know. What do you think? You've been around since as long as I have, the sport.
I like the progression. I think that, it's great to go out to these tracks. I'd like to see more people. I'd like to see it advertised more, to similar to how they do a supercross event, and get people that may have been in the sport back in the day out to see the advancements. Riding on the airplane over here, it was pretty surreal because there was a gentleman, he asked, what are we going over here, coming to Australia for? And he was coming over for work. His wife is a scientist, so they've never been involved in the sport. And to hear this gentleman speak, we said, we're coming over for BMX, and he's like, it was in the Olympics, it was on TV. Elise Post won. He knew exactly who won, Connor Fields, who won, and I think that, the progression and the education and getting people more involved, is it fair for the little kids? I don't know yet. Maybe it's one of these things that I mean, I can't see my 7-year-old up on a starting hill that big, but it's definitely
I don't know if you're on Facebook, we're on Facebook, everybody's on Facebook. There's a thread started by a guy who was 4-time USA BMX national pro title champion. And the thread's about the current state of BMX in the USA. And there's one sanctioning body, USA BMX. And the thread started on the things that need, in this person's opinion, of the things that need to be fixed, okay? But what's the problem? What isn't good about what's going on in the United States right now that needs to be fixed? A lot of what's being said is very self-serving for the individuals that are commenting
on this thread.
On this thread. So Patty and I, because she's been in it since her dad and family had 3 tracks, she raced. We didn't really know each other, but she's been involved enough to know the goods, the bads, the uglies, and all that stuff. In business and like what I do, we live off of safety, quality, production, okay? So is the sport unsafe? First off, let's take just an ABA national or USA BMX national. Is the sport unsafe? No, it's not unsafe. It's a very safe sport, considering how many people do laps and how many people race bikes and all that stuff. But they're talking about fixing something. What's broke? Okay, the USA BMX is a business. What they care about is their bottom line. And are they profitable? Are they, if they have 30,000 members or 60,000 members or 80,000 members, how many more have they forecasted to have next year? Is it 85,000? Okay, so if they hit that number based on the budget that they're going to spend in marketing and advertising and the races and all the things, the cost associated with going from 80,000 to 85,000, they're successful. But we've always, as riders, looked at what they're doing wrong and what they can do more to promote the sport. But I think the sport's pretty healthy when you go to the ABA Grand Nationals. There's 765 motos. Okay, I mean, I've been going there for
10 or 20 years.
something like that. That's a joke.
It's a joke.
Running joke. And so I've been at the Grands when there's been 126 motos in Las Vegas, Nevada in 1980 or 77 or whatever, to 700 and, it's an Olympic sport now and all this stuff. What's wrong with the program they have? Is it too big? Maybe. So, but isn't their business about making money? Yeah. Can they come up with something like we talked, you had the idea of, because in motocross, I pair a lot of things was Supercross. She mentioned that Supercross, you have the Asterix program. And we know Eddie Casillas, who goes and picks up Chad Reed and Trey Kennard and all those guys every week on the Supercross tour. If you watch TV, he's the first guy at those guys, talking to them and picking them up. And he rides at Paris, and we get to talk to him a lot. And is that the guy? Why can't that guy take what he knows from Asterix, sell a program, and now the ABA has, or the USA BMX, has a traveling certified safety program, criteria. Patty's is in the helmet business, selling helmets. Should helmets be, you said X-rayed, right?
I said X-rayed, because of these progressions with the tracks, these Supercross tracks, you've got these athletes that are out there crashing, and they do go through a standardized, evaluation to make sure that they're okay to get back on them. But, I'm saying let's x-ray these helmets and have somebody, that's certified, that knows, that can sign it off and say that, Harry's okay to get back on that supercross track. They're huge. These jumps are huge. They're asphalt, and when they're crashing hard. When they're winning big. So.
And
BMX has to be the only sport I know of where there just doesn't seem to be any concern for concussions and
That's
people
a
getting
huge,
knocked out. They just jump straight back on the bike
that's a
and go
huge
again.
concern. So putting together this safety team that is a standardized worldwide, not just in the US, worldwide, and these helmets being inspected. I'm all for pushing to where people are required to, within a certain amount of time, within 2 years, you get rid of it. Or if there's a major crash, whether it's whether it's on a local level or at a major event, if that helmet isn't checked, it doesn't go back on, but then you've got, track operators, they're running, the selfless jobs, I think, they're running these tracks and trying to keep everybody healthy and safe and put on a good show and keep the fun and excitement, but safety really needs to supersede and be stepped up.
And the supercross races, they have that. They have the established criteria for testing the elite athletes, both men and female and male. So if they fall once they address all the abrasions and all, if they have a broken bone or whatever, that's addressed first. And then they do their test, because everybody tests at the beginning of the year, and the parameters are set so that if you fall and hit your head, you retake all these tests, and if you fail within a percentage, I believe this is how it is, because I watched Jake Peebles get tested when he crashed, and he failed. He fell below the percentile in order to get back on the track. Said, you can't ride. Even though he said, I'm fine, I feel great. The medics that travel to all the events, which are the same guys, all the files and all the computer data on each rider travels to every event. They said, no, I'm sorry, you're out for your weekend. You can't race because you failed these tests. The process is there, at the elite level. Where I work, we document a splinter. If somebody gets a splinter, we do a report, we document how it happened, we have a board review meeting, we figure out, is it our gloves? What is it? Why did this person, why are we getting an excess amount of cuts? And so if you start addressing the little things, you can prevent something major. It's a fact. So does the USA BMX go to the local level and say, I need you guys, whenever somebody falls and there's a helmet related crash, I need you to start to document that rider, who that person is. And I don't know, but like you were saying, it needs to trickle down to the local level, and then address safety first and foremost.
Because the tracks aren't getting any smaller, they're getting bigger and faster and bigger and faster.
If you could go back to the 18-year-old, just about to turn pro in 1977, what advice would you give him, knowing what you know now?
Go into the military. I had that choice because I was riding for James C, and I started with them in 76. So in 1980, pro started in 77, and I was racing local. And money started to get pretty big outside of where I was and where I could get with JMC. So I brought in a list of races. I said, Jim, I really would like to go to these events. And I said, he couldn't get me there. I said, then I'm going to need to quit the team. So I quit JMC, and then I made a decision. I had to make a decision when I got sponsored by Diamondback, because I went to a race without a jersey. I said, hey, I'm looking for a ride. They gave me a ride. And so I had a decision to make, because they laid out this red carpet program to where we became princesses. Right? She always said Diamondback guys were princesses because we were treated like royalty with them. We flew awesome. Tickets showed up at our door every week. We knew where we were going, when we were leaving. When we showed up, it was first class rental cars. Every guy had their own bed. We never had to double up or have 4 or 5 people in a room. We ate good. We got per diem money, $20 a day, and it was carte blanche. And we knew this. I knew this going in, so I needed to make a decision. Do I race and see if I can make it, or do I go and get a job? So at that moment, I thought, if I was to go back, I probably would have gone into the military.
And being on the other side and hearing all the stories, living it but not living it directly with him, the 18-year-old pro, I would have made sure his name was trademarked. I would have made sure that he was taken over, because we would be living in our house in Melbourne with the big fence and the
Kangaroos in the backyard.
Kangaroos in the backyard. No, but just taking care of the pros. They didn't, they were young. They didn't know that there's going to be these lifelong.
To answer your question,
Yeah.
what advice would I give to an 8-year-old, 18-year-old? Look at what Kevin Pauls is doing.
Yes.
You want to be a great rider. You want to, if your true choice is to race BMX and make a living as a pro, the formula is there. The riders to copy are there. But if you're going to do it, you need to commit everything you have, and you better have a very, very strong family and support group that are willing and capable of also sacrificing many things in what normal families go do on the weekends for years until you're an adult and on your own and actually have a salary and making money as a pro. There's not many guys right now that do it and make money doing it. And, Patty touched on something that, I look back now and I go, God, if I would have had somebody in my life at that time that understood the importance of marketing and had guys like Stu and Greg and all these other guys. Some of them had them, some of them didn't. But a marketing person to do the trademarks, to do the marketing and stuff.
What music do you listen to now?
Over here, since we've been here, what have we heard? Nelly Vanilli,
NSYNC.
NSYNC.
Milli Vanilli still gets airplay?
Here?
Here they do.
Serious?
Pete's over there going, no.
Okay. Music. What motivation music that gets you pumped up are?
Creed, Poison, Ride the Wind. Listen to Ride the Wind by Poison and close your eyes and listen to every word.
Bon Jovi.
Blake Shelton. I used to like Guns N' Roses, but they knocked off a t-shirt, so I don't like Guns N' Roses anymore. Who do we listen to? Journey. Don't Stop Believing. Queen.
There's some music that we're very eclectic in our genre of music, but if you hit the iPod and shuffle, anything from Melissa Etheridge to Creed to Poison to Motley Crue comes on there, but there are a few songs that just, are the ones that just pump you up.
Give you a good gauge start.
Since our interview 16 years ago, have you changed your opinion about Neil Young? You were very neutral back then.
Neil Young, the musician?
Musician.
Oh, that's funny.
I enjoy his music. It's funny. Not funny, but talking about music, where we stayed in Sydney, right, with Michael Schmitz. He's got 2 beautiful kids, a daughter who's, what's her name?
Nikolai, and she is
They're-
7 and 10-year-old Joseph, and
They're a huge music family. They play guitars. There's music in the house at all times, which is really, really cool. So we were asking them what music they liked,
and this 7-year-old sits across the table from us. I'm thinking she's going to say Justin Bieber or Nicki Minaj or something. And I said, so what type of music do you like to listen to? And she says to us, Ray Charles, Elvis Presley, oh my gosh, it was, I mean, absolutely.
everybody from the 50s.
I mean, this kid loves that
Old school stuff.
They love
Oh,
Chuck
there's
Berry,
that word, Chuck Berry.
and her music taste blew my mind away. I mean, it was so, but she was
Refreshing.
spot on, and it was so refreshing that it wasn't Justin Bieber or Nicki Minaj. So
And music, just for me, it just realigns your whole.
I didn't know you were a Neil Young fan.
He wasn't
Rust
last
never
time.
sleeps.
He wasn't back
Last time we spoke,
back
he
in the
wasn't.
day.
No. But I am a little bit older now. Almost 60.
Almost 60.
What are your plans for the future in BMX?
In a perfect world, as the girl behind the guy,
No,
as his partner in crime,
we walk side by side.
support system. If I could write the ending chapter for him, it would be to go to the Worlds next year, come out with a world plate, coaching for the Olympics, and a bike company somewhere involved. If I could write it. I don't know. What do you think? How would you like to see it?
That would work.
How would it work?
And we beat Pete's neighbors. Nathan's neighbors. Can't see it.
It says neighbors, it's my little house.
It's neighbors? Yeah, neighbors.
What bike are you riding at the moment?
I'm riding a box thrill from bikes from Indonesia. It's equipped with box parts. It is the best 20-inch I've ever ridden. The thing is, it's incredible. It is so easy to ride. Like, I hadn't ridden I've been on a track in almost 3 months till we got here. I rode the week before we left just to say, okay, I gotta get on this thing and ride it. But, it's an awesome bike. It's made in Indonesia. It's a company that Toby is bringing into the States they partnered up, I think, for 3 years. I'm not sure the exact term of the contract, but it's incredible. And the box parts, it never ran the 20 mil axles front and rear, or the big 35 mil spindle cranks, but the big bars, and it just works. It's incredible.
Who are your current sponsors?
Box, Thrill, Fly. I think that's it.
Box Thrill, Promax, Fly, some co-sponsors, Isogenics, which is a protein and nutrition company in the States.
Isogenics, what Scott Breitbart was selling.
Yes.
Correct.
And
We've kind of filled that void. We've filled that void for him.
so we've worked on that. We've had some great people, come on board, prior to locking in and securing a long-term deal with Toby. And
I think what was Toby's contract? 2023 or something, he said?
2023, he said, well,
So we got a long-term deal. I want a raise. You don't get a raise if you're not getting anything.
Well, wrap it up right now, but is there anyone you'd like to thank before we do?
Toby Henderson, Gregorio at Fox BMX, they've been great. Michael Gamesetter, you've got Ray Hudson at Fly, Mike Redman, Greg Hill, USA BMX, because they take good care of him.
Yeah, we had a big deal last year where I was running, my career number is number 25, and so I was trying to run 25, and Jennifer's the announcer, Jen is the sign-up lady, and so she kept saying, you gotta put on the right number next week, you gotta put on the right next. So they really put up with a lot of my crap. So thanks, guys.
All of his sponsors, we definitely want to thank Australia.
Yeah.
We want to thank Pete and
The mayor,
security, everybody, just, Michael and his family.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael.
And you know what? Last and really should have been first.
God.
God.
Without him, we are nothing and can do nothing. With him, we can do all.
Exactly.
One more question I probably should have slipped in is, what's your favourite Australian saying, and can you do it in your best Australian accent?
You go first. I can't get the Australian. I can get the British one, great. Oh, I be tipping, we going down. I love that word tipping. It's like I think they're going over here. I tipping we're going to be over there in like 15 minutes.
And my favorite is so silly, but in the States we say, are you taking
You've already
dining in or
taking out.
And I love when they walk in, is it dine in or takeaway? Takeaway. It's takeaway. That is the coolest word ever. I don't know why, but I love it. So I'm going to take away my dinner all the time.
Cruisy. Don't let your bits be hanging out.
That's.
I know. You could cut that one, but I just had to say it. 'Cause it's funny.
The other one is cheeky.
Yeah, cheeky.
It's great. There's some fun words. The one thing that I will say that I have noticed since we've been here, you guys have an accent.
What's up with that?
My best thing that happened at the track, two little girls come up to me and they said, you know you have an accent? I said, I do? They go, yeah, you do. You talk like Miss Kate. Would you come to our school and talk? I said, I have an accent. Are you sure I have an accent? You don't have an accent. So these little girls, it's just been, God, it was awesome. Awesome. It's cheeky.
It's cheeky. Thanks, Shane.
Thanks very much.
Very cool. It was awesome. Thanks, man.